Hello students, welcome to our Science 7 class. I am Teacher Marisol, your science teacher for this school year. Our lesson for today is Science Grade 7, Lesson 1, the Scientific Investigation, particularly focusing on scientific method. For this lesson, you are expected to describe the components of scientific investigation. Okay, so let's start. The scientific investigation is a series of steps done systematically to study a problem or an event. Or it is a quest to find the answer to a question using a scientific method. In turn, the scientific method is a systematic process that involves using measurable observations to formulate a test or modify a hypothesis. This is the flowchart that shows the sequence of steps involved in using a scientific method. First, identifying the problem. Next, formulating a hypothesis. Then, doing an experiment. Next, collecting data. Next is analyzing the data, whether the experiment supports the hypothesis or reject the hypothesis. Lastly is making a conclusion. If the experiment rejects your hypothesis, you may do reevaluation and revise the hypothesis. And then, you may do another experiment and follow the steps. Okay, so we are using scientific investigation to acquire scientific knowledge. To understand more, let's have an example using the steps of scientific method. A scientific investigation aims to answer an identified problem. So, the first step is to identify the problem. A good scientific problem is clear, concise, specific, and verifiable. This is the step where you will gonna ask, what do you want to find out? The problem must be in a state of question. It always begins with the question, how or why? To come up with a good question, try to observe your surroundings. What phenomenon would you want to investigate? An example would be, why does my plants grow slower? Sometimes a good question may arise from something that is not working. Like when the battery of your cell phone drains up too fast. In this case, a good question will be, how can I make the battery of my cell phone last longer? Okay, next we will go on the step 2, which is formulating hypothesis. After the problem has been identified, a tentative answer can be formulated. This intelligent guess, which is based on known fact, is called hypothesis. This is maybe a possible answer to your question. Take note, a hypothesis is not just a guess. It should be based on existing theories or knowledge. It is also having to be testable, which means you can support or reject it through experiment. So, our hypothesis in our question, why does my plants grow slower, is if the plant is reached by the sunlight, then it will grow faster and germinate healthy. Next is to know if our hypothesis is correct or wrong. we will do an experiment or experimentation. When we say experimentation, it is done to test the hypothesis whether it is correct or wrong. It may also include getting measurements during the experimentation. So, for our experiment, of course, we need some materials. 2 empty cans of same kind, humus or garden soil, 10 mango seeds, water, and sunlight. And in making an experiment, of course, we have procedure to follow. First, punch holes at the bottom of cans. Label them A and B. Fill out 3/4 of each can with soil. Plant 5 mango seeds in each can. Water the seeds in both setups every day for 5 days. Place can A in an area reached by sunlight, while place can B in an area not reached by sunlight. Observe the seeds in both cans every day for 5 days. During experimentation, careful and objective observation must be done to gather all the information needed about the objects, situations, or event using your senses. Both qualitative and quantitative observations constitute the data gathered during experimentations. So we need to observe can A with sunlight and can B without sunlight. So during observations, we need to collect or gather data. This will help the results reliable, scientific, and valid. For this example experiment, the number of sprouts after 5 days in can A, all the seeds that we planted grow healthy, while in can B, all seed was grown but unhealthy compared to the seed which is reached by the sun. And for the color of mango sprouts, in can A, yellow-green or ordinary color of the sprout and its leaves seems to be healthy, while in can B, the color of its leaves was yellowish compared to the can A. And for the size of the mango sprouts, we observed in can A that the size of mango sprouts were ordinary and grows healthy and it grows bigger. While in can B, the size of mango sprout were small, although it grows but it is unhealthy. Also, in doing an experiment, you need to identify the variables involved. When we say variables, these are some factors that are either observed, manipulated, or measured. They can affect the outcome or results of your experiment. There are 2 types of variables. These are independent variable and dependent variable. When we say independent variable, these are variables that are manipulated or changed by the experimenter, while the dependent variables are the outcome or the observed effect of independent variables. You need to decide which variables need to be controlled so that your investigation is fair and your results are accurate. So our independent variable in this experiment is the sunlight, and the dependent variable is the mango seeds. The last step in scientific investigation is making a conclusion. When we say conclusion, It is a direct response to the problem under investigation. In this part, you will state if your hypothesis is confirmed or disproved. To make a conclusion, you must analyze and interpret first the data gathered so that they will be more compact and meaningful. So our conclusion in this experiment is we concluded that the seeds need sunlight in order to grow healthy. In germinating seed, it is necessary to expose in sunlight in order to grow healthy. The temperature is also needed in sprouting seeds. Okay, that's all for today. See you in our next lesson.